allows it.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's not even necessarily the legislation. It's just the browser policies themselves, and what Safari and Chrome are doing.
Yeah, but I think they kind of leverage like the scaremongering
Yeah,
around privacy and
yeah,
the movement on legislation like GDPR and
yeah.
CCPA
They
as
feed into each other for sure.
they feed into it and it becomes this vicious cycle.
Yeah,
And
but
then
it's interesting because in doing so, they've made it sound like, GDPR is about cookies. That is the privacy problem we're trying to overcome. GDPR, that whole 80-page document mentions cookies once, and even then as an example. It's not about cookies, it's about the data. So but when Google and Apple and everyone else talk about it, they talk about it in terms of cookies, because that's a problem we can solve. We can block cookies,
yeah,
but the personal data thing we're not really willing to give up on yet. So let's just make everybody think the problem is solved if we
it's
block
theater.
cookies. Because cookies has just kind of become the placeholder word for respecting privacy. Blocking cookies, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And yeah, you definitely see that shared between the policies and the regulations and the browsers and the big players, that they're all going along with that illusion that it's about the cookies.
Exactly. And that's why I think a lot of it's theater.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
then I also think a lot
It's
of it
like taking
also
your shoes off at the airport.
uh-huh.
Doesn't actually stop or do anything. It just makes us feel like something's being done.
It makes us feel like something's being done, and it gives justification for certain things.
Yep.
So
sorry, that's a major tangent. We went off in
no, it's good.
far from the implementation stuff, but it does affect the future of analytics quite a bit. There is a new Adobe thing that I think kind of snuck under the radar for a lot of folks, that the user, for a while it was called user generated ID. I think now it's just called device ID or first party device ID, where Adobe is making it more beneficial to set your own user ID and make it so that if you do so, it affects your data. S.visitor ID never worked the way we wanted it to. This does. And that is definitely going to be the way of the future. I think that not necessarily to get around GDPR, because GDPR cares about what the data is, not but certainly to get around the cookie blocking and all of that. That organizations are going to have their own way to identify a visitor. And analytics tools are finally getting to the point that they can really take advantage of that if you do it. The problem in the past has usually been if on page A your user's not authenticated and on page B they are authenticated, and you start using their user ID to identify them, then they look like two visitors because it was a different ID on each page. But now the tools have come around to the point where they can merge that profile together and make sense of it, so that we have options that aren't just relying on Adobe's ECID cookie or whatever it is.